Hi, everyone, and welcome to the presentation for the I-40 Tijeras Arroyo Bridges study. This presentation is being made to supplement the public meeting, which is held on May 16th, 2024. The presenters this evening will be myself, Jefferson. I'm an environmental planner with Parametrix. We are a design and planning firm that is supporting the Department of Transportation on this project. I'll be joined by the Parametrix engineer, Jim Buckman. And during the public meeting, we will also have representatives from the Department of Transportation, including the project engineer, Luke Smith. The agenda for this evening will include a discussion of the study location, the goals, background, and study process. We will describe the existing conditions that we found out in the study area, describe the project purpose and need, describe the alternatives that were developed to address that purpose and need, and provide the preliminary recommendations, next steps, and then open the meeting up to questions. I'd like to step back just for a second to emphasize that preliminary recommendations are just that. They are preliminary. I'll speak to this a little bit on our process slide, but the way the DOT comes to decisions about projects is that they go through a study process that considers several factors. Things like cost, engineering considerations, impacts to the environment, and also the public input. That's what we're here to do tonight, is to start that process of gathering the public input. And before any recommendations are finalized, all of those considerations will be looked at as a whole. So the study is located on the interstate bridges as they cross over Tijeras Arroyo. This is near the Carnival exit. It is just a little bit west of Tijeras and a little bit east of the Albuquerque area. And you can see from the graphic there, the bridges that were studied include the northern one, the westbound off-ramp from the interstate, and then the two middle bridges, which are the main lines of the interstate. And then the southernmost bridge in the image is for a frontage road. So this slide just shows the location in a little bit broader context. It's about 1.7 miles east of the tramway exit and about 5 miles west of the Tijeras exit. And this slide just, again, is another presentation of the bridges that were considered. You can see to the right there is the westbound off-ramp bridge, followed to the left by the two interstate bridges, and then at the far left of the scene is the frontage road bridge that was studied. So the goals for the meeting tonight are to explain the study process, present the preliminary results of the study, and ask for community feedback and input before any decisions are finalized. So the process that the DOT follows whenever they develop any major project is it has multiple phases that are shown up on the screen, phase A, B, C, and D. The first phase is where we really look into the need for the project and define the concerns that have to be addressed. We also develop alternatives to address those concerns and do some preliminary evaluation about which of those alternatives is better. Phase B is a little bit more detailed evaluation of those alternatives, and that's the phase we're in right now. That's the phase, like I mentioned earlier, it involves different factors such as engineering considerations, cost, environmental impacts, and public input. We're near the end of that phase B, but tonight is where we are really looking for the public input, and that public comment period will go on for some time, but that is one of the remaining elements that we need to consider before finalizing any decision. So after the Phase B, after we make a final recommendation, we enter into an environmental clearance phase, and then we kind of leave the study phase and move more into design with Phase D. Phase D is preliminary design, and of course that leads eventually into final design and construction. So now we will talk about the existing conditions in the study area. I'll discuss these first few with the environmental conditions before handing it over to Jim to discuss the various engineering elements. So the environmental conditions that we looked at identified some things like some archaeological and cultural resources that are in the project area. We looked at wildlife and natural resource considerations. We know this area is a wildlife crossing location, and that was an important element during the study process. And we also considered quite a bit the water quality concerns for Tijeras Arroyo. And these are just some of the issues that were identified and considered as the alternatives were developed and then evaluated. And now I'll hand it over to Jim to talk about some of the more engineering-oriented existing conditions.
My name is Jim Buckman, and I'm going to start by talking about the existing conditions related to engineering issues for this project, starting with the bridges that are the focus of this project. The I-40 east and westbound bridges were built in 1978. There was maintenance work done on them in the 1990s. The eastbound bridge is rated as being in poor condition, and you can see some of the damage to the girder ends in the picture at the right. The westbound bridge is rated in slightly better condition as fair, but it does have damage to the approach pavements, and its condition is similar to the eastbound. The structural capacity of these bridges does not meet current standards, and the bridges are at the end of their design life. The I-40 westbound off-ramp bridge, built in the same year, also had maintenance work done on it, and it's rated in fair condition with issues that are similar to the I-40 bridges, and it's also at the end of its design life. The South Frontage Road Bridge, built in 1978 also, is rated in satisfactory condition, and it has a different design from the other three bridges without major structural issues. Other engineering issues noted were that the I-40 inside shoulders are narrow, the eastbound on-ramp acceleration lane is substandard, however there was no crash history noted, and the Tijeras Arroyo is in a Federal Emergency Management Agency floodplain designated area. This slide shows the existing traffic volumes and future traffic volumes as well for I-40, the ramp, and the frontage road. I-40 eastbound and westbound currently carry approximately 22,000 vehicles per day, which is predicted to almost double in the next 20 years. The I-40 westbound off-ramp carries approximately 130 vehicles per day on average, which is forecast to decrease in the future. The South Frontage Road Bridge carries approximately 420 vehicles, and it's expected to increase to approximately 550. To verify the traffic volumes on the I-40 westbound ramp, traffic counts were done at the ramp and New Mexico 333 intersection. These counts were done in the morning and the evening peak hour over the course of 2 separate days. What the counts showed is that approximately 8 to 10 vehicles used the westbound off-ramp during the peak hour, with about a third heading west toward Albuquerque, a third continuing back onto I-40 on the on-ramp, and a third heading east towards Carnuel. So after gathering data on the existing conditions in the project area, we were able to establish the need for the project and in turn the purpose of the proposed project. which is to correct the structural deficiencies with the existing bridges. The bridges have damage caused by decades of exposure to traffic and the environment. The I-40 mainline bridges have serious issues that could lead to structural failure and bridge closures if not addressed. And the I-40 westbound off-ramp bridge, while in better condition than the I-40 bridges, is at risk of having the same issues. And all of these bridges, as I've said, are at the end of their design life. The South Frontage Road Bridge is in satisfactory condition and can remain in service with minor repairs and maintenance. So the next step in the study was to come up with design alternatives that address the structural issues with the existing bridges. For the mainline bridges, I-40 would remain in its current configuration, but these bridges would be replaced. One alternative was to look at a single span, and by span I'm referring to the number of sections of bridge between the supports. So alternative 1 would be a single span between the supports. Alternative 2 would have 2 spans with a pier in the arroyo, and alternative 3 would have 3 spans with 2 piers in the channel. For the westbound off-ramp, we looked at an alternative to rehabilitate the existing bridge. And then because the traffic volumes were low and access to the area was available via New Mexico 333 and the tramway and Tijeras interchanges, we looked at bridge removal and closure of the ramp. And this is shown in the graphic at right. For the South Frontage Road, bridge rehabilitation was the only option considered because of the bridge's relatively good condition. So after coming up with alternatives for the design of the project, our next task was to evaluate the alternatives using factors that we considered important to the study. These factors included the purpose and need for the project, bridge engineering, geotechnical engineering, traffic impacts, construction detours, drainage and floodplains, economics, and community and environmental factors. And as we've said, public input is an important component to the evaluation of the alternatives, and we hope to receive comments from the meeting and other outreach that's currently happening. So for our preliminary evaluation of the alternatives, for the I-40 mainline bridges, the single-span bridges would require longer girders. They would have more difficult foundation design. They would require temporary walls for construction. The bridge would improve drainage conditions. The estimated construction cost would be $40.4 million. And they would have minimal work in the arroyo, which is important from an environmental standpoint. For the 2-span bridges, they would have minimal temporary walls, but the central pier would affect drainage conditions in the arroyo. The estimated construction cost is $43.3 million, and they would require some work in the channel. The 3-span bridge alternative would have minimal temporary walls for construction relative especially to the single span. This alternative would improve drainage conditions. It would have a $48.2 million estimated construction cost, and it would also require minor work in the arroyo channel. For the westbound off-ramp bridge, the rehabilitation of the existing bridge alternative, for that alternative, the remaining life of the bridge, even after rehabilitation, is difficult to estimate. This bridge would maintain current access. Construction closures would be required. It would maintain existing drainage conditions. The estimated cost is $4.9 million. And based on an analysis that we performed that I'll talk about in just a minute, the cost of rehabilitation would exceed the benefits accrued to the community. The other alternative for the westbound off-ramp bridge, of course, is closing the ramp and removing the bridge. Access would be available. It would have a minimal effect on traffic operations, safety, and incident management based on our analysis. Of course, we're very interested in receiving comments and listening to comments on this. It would improve drainage conditions. The construction cost would be $820,000. It would eliminate ongoing inspection and maintenance costs, and it would require a number of drivers to change routes. For the westbound off-ramp bridge, we did a benefit and cost analysis of keeping the existing bridge and ramp open to try to determine whether the benefits would outweigh the costs or vice versa. And this analysis was done following standard Federal Highway Administration methods. So the benefits were compared to detouring traffic to the tramway interchange. The benefits included travel time savings, vehicle operating cost savings, reduced crashes, and emissions cost savings, which were calculated to amount to $3.1 million over a 25-year period. On the cost side of the ledger, the cost of the bridge rehabilitation would be $4.9 million, which exceeds the monetary value of the benefits that were calculated. And this did not include the ongoing operation and maintenance of the bridge. Finally, for the South Frontage Road Bridge, rehabilitation would involve limited repairs to the existing bridge. One-lane traffic may be needed during construction or potentially short-term closures. We understand that alternate access is not always available. There would be no drainage changes. The estimated construction cost is $4.6 million, and it would require minor work in the Arroyo Channel. So the preliminary recommendations that came out of our initial analysis were to replace the I-40 mainline bridges with single-span bridges, which had the lowest construction cost, improves drainage, and would reduce the amount of channel disturbance. For the I-40 westbound off-ramp bridge, the preliminary recommendation was to close the off-ramp and demolish the bridge, based on our analysis that showed the costs are higher than the benefits, and that it would have a minimal effect on traffic operations, safety, incident management, or emergency response. And for the South Frontage Road Bridge, the recommendation is to rehabilitate the existing bridge and making repairs.
Our project schedule begins in 2023 when we started collecting existing data and developing the alternatives that we discussed tonight, and really began with the technical analysis of evaluating those alternatives. That brings us up to the public meeting, which is held May 16th, and that begins our public comment period. That will extend for a month through June 16th, and then final recommendations will be made shortly after that time. That will lead into preliminary design. We're anticipating that in the spring of 2025, with final design coming about a year later in the spring of 2026. And construction for the project is anticipated somewhere in the 2028 to 2029 timeframe. To comment on the project, you can use the comment forms that are at the website shown on the screen, or you can email the project team at i40bridges_carnewell@parametrix.com. You can also call us at 505-998-5552 or mail comments to the address shown on the screen. And we look forward to receiving comments by June 16th, 2024. This concludes our presentation for the evening. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.